Hello and welcome back to Module 3. Now that we have been discussing the global scale, let's move on to self-assessment grade. It is quite clear that the descriptors of the global scales are very helpful for self-assessment, but they may be quite general. The self-assessment grid provides statements in the format of I can across the levels and skills to help you understand what your level is and where you will go next with your language learning and use. The self-assessment grid describes what learners can do in terms of receptive, productive, and interactive skills. Let's take one example. Look at the statement, I can understand the main points of clear standard speech on familiar matters regularly encountered in work, school, leisure, and so on. Can you tell me whether it talks about receptive, productive, or interaction, and what level it is? Please pay attention to the phrases such as clear standard speech, familiar, regularly encountered. The answer is receptive skilled, more specifically listening skilled, at level B1. One more example, okay? I can present clear, detailed descriptions on a wide range of subjects related to my field of interest. By looking at the phrases like clear, detailed, a wide range of subjects, my field of interest, you can be sure that it is about speaking skills. It means productive skills. And the level is V2. Congratulations. The can-do statements in the self-assessment grid help you to reflect on your current and future level of language proficiency. You can start a journey at A1 level and move toward greater levels. You can also look back at the progress you have made on a journey and plan your route to the next level with guidance from teachers or other language speakers. For example, a descriptor like I can ask and answer simple questions and respond to simple statements on familiar topics requires the learner to engage in real-life communicative activities such as asking and answering questions rather than filling in worksheets or participating in rote learning activities. It is important to remember that the scale is written to describe what a language learner can do, not what he or she cannot do. So, this provides motivation and confidence to you. There are a lot of benefits of using can-do statements in the self-assessment grid and other scales in the classroom. First of all, the can-do statements break down language skills into specific areas. So, rather than saying students should work on reading, they can identify areas of reading that needs more practice, such as understanding instruction. This will help learning to be more achievable by looking at the specific things rather than the overall picture. Secondly, if students look at the can-do statements regularly and assess what they can do, they start to see progress as they tick on more statements on the list each time. This can be very motivating to the students. The can-do statements also allow teachers and students to monitor problem areas when they are not making progress. Perhaps they need more help from the teachers in specific area or more opportunities to practice. In this way, the statements can be used as a diagnostic tool. They can also give students a sense of achievement. For example, when students see they can tick 80% of the statements on the list, then they may be ready to move up to the next level. You know that besides self-assessments, there are also illustrative scales with a lot of can-do statements which state clearly what students are able to do in some specific skills. So, what are the benefits of the can-do statements for learners and teachers? Now we're going to watch a video about that. It is very clear that they provide learning targets for curriculum and unit design, serving as performance indicators. Learners are provided a way to chart their progress through incremental steps. These statements can be best used as part of an overall learning process that includes setting goals, selecting strategies, self-assessing, providing evidence, and reflecting.
Glad you could join me as we explore the National Council of State Supervisors of Foreign Languages and the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages can-do statements. What are can-do statements? Can-do statements are self-assessment checklists used by language learners to assess what they can do with language in the interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational modes of communication. What are the modes of communication? This is divided into 5 categories. Interpersonal, or person-to-person, it's a productive skill. Presentational speaking, or spoken production, which is also a productive skill. Presentational writing, written production, also a productive skill. Interpretive listening, a receptive skill. And interpretive reading, also a receptive skill. What 2 purposes can can-do statements serve? 1. For programs, the statements provide learning targets for curriculum and unit design, serving as performance indicators. And 2, for language learners, the statements provide a way to chart their progress through incremental steps. How can the can-do checklist be used best by the teacher and learner? Checklists are best used by learners and learning facilitators as part of an overall reflective learning process that includes setting goals, selecting strategies, self-assessing, providing evidence, and reflecting before setting new goals. How do the checklists help learners? Learners use a checklist to record what they think they can do. They may also realize that the progression may not be the same for each mode, interpersonal, interpretive, or presentational. It determines their progress on the proficiency ladder, assessing each mode separately. Learners can upload audio, video, or text files linked to specific can-do statements. This provides evidence of what they can do. Learners can check off specific can-do statements when they are able to demonstrate that they can perform that specific task. It is not necessary to demonstrate every task in specific order. These may differ for each learner depending on the context and their goals for learning the language. How do the checklists help teachers? Teachers can use the global can-do benchmarks and main indicators to set long-term learning goals. They have an idea of what their students should be able to do with language after 1 semester, after 1 year, etc. They can reevaluate their goals when informed by assessment. Formative assessment informs and directs teaching and learning. Teachers can choose more specific can-do statements or customize new ones to establish learning targets for thematic units and lessons. It can help drive their instruction to be more performance-oriented and provide more opportunities for young learners to produce language. They can model goal setting for their learners. They can share with their students the can-do statements they are targeting for each lesson. This will help show students how those targets relate to the unit goals. It encourages learners to set their own goals as well. It provides the necessary class time and guidance for self-assessment and reflection. When teachers develop performance assessment, they can use the wording from the can-do statements so that learners know exactly what is expected of them. Teachers help learners understand that what they can write or say actually demonstrates what they have or have not mastered of the can-do statements. In this way, teachers can help students become more independent learners, able to set their own goals and provide evidence of them. In other words, to become autonomous and lifelong learners. What does research tell us about motivation? Students that are more engaged in their own learning process are more intrinsically motivated. Research shows that the ability of language learners to set goals is linked to increased student motivation, language achievement, and growth in proficiency. To get free PDF copies of the actual can-do statement,
As you can see from the video, the can-do statements are very beneficial for both learners and teachers in self-study and classroom activities. Especially, learners can become more independent and autonomous and lifelong learners. But what are the benefits of can-do statements in the classroom? Let's continue to watch another video titled Can-do statements as classroom objective to see how a teacher can use can-do statements in her lessons.
I can statements are your lesson objectives. So what you want your students to know at the end of your lesson, they can be used in reading, can be used in math, social studies, writing, science, whatever subject area it is. You can write I can statements for them. I can statements are your lesson objectives in student-friendly language. So I take the standard that I want the students to meet in math and reading and in writing, and then I turn it into kid-friendly language so they understand what I want them to know. For example, today in reading, we were working on making inferences.
So here's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to be making inferences to comprehend text, and we're going to learn some new vocabulary words. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today during reading.
The objective was I can make inferences to comprehend text. The standard that they were meeting is much wordier and way more lengthy, and it would be really hard for them to understand what it is I want them to know. So I can statements are putting the state standards into kid-friendly language so they really are able to know what exactly does the teacher want them to know.
Why is it important to make inferences while we are reading? Why is it important? Why should we make inferences while we're reading? Angelica?
So you understand what you're reading.
So you understand what you're reading more. Because do authors always tell us exactly everything we need to know about the topic? Look at the cartoon. The caption does not say why the women are protesting. And what do you know about when people hold signs and are angry and protesting? Does that mean they're happy with what's going on?
No.
No, it means that they're unhappy. So we used what we could see and what we know to make an inference. And so I think that Addie's Movers does not pay women the same as men. And the women are protesting this inequality.
And throughout your lesson, you can tie your I can statements back to what you're doing. Because when your objective is clear and concise, your students know what they're doing, and throughout the lesson, you can go back to it and you can ask your students, hey, what are we doing? What are we working on? And they'll be able to see, oh, we're working on inferences, and that's the objective for the day.
I am on the next page, page 261. I'm going to read aloud the first paragraph, and then we're going to go through that example inferencing, okay? What did you read? What did you read? Jerry, what did you read?
I read that the women wanted equal pay.
What do you know? What do you know? Ashley?
I know that when people protest, they want to change something.
When people protest, they want to change something. What can we infer? We read that women wanted equal pay. We know that people protest when they want to change things. And so, what can we infer, Allie?
And so I think the women want more money for their job.
Let's go on to that next paragraph, paragraph 2. What did you read about? In those last two paragraphs, what did you read?
I read that the women got what they wanted and they got more money.
And the women got more money. So,
I read that
what do you know about that then? What do you know?
their pay
that their protests went well and they got
Okay, so you know then that since you read that the conflict was over, you know that when protests end, that must mean that they got what they wanted. They came up with an agreement. So what can we infer? What can we infer?
can infer that they got paid the money they wanted to.
The next thing we're going to do now is we're going to really apply what we know about making inferences, and we're going to write about it.
It's really important that the objectives or I can statements are measurable. For example, I can make inferences to explain text. As a teacher, you need to be able to measure their learning. So I can measure the objective. I can make inferences. As I talk to the students, I can really know, are they making inferences? It's not just I can think about making inferences, it's I can make inferences, so they're measurable. Not only should your objectives be measurable by the teacher, but also by the students. Self-monitoring is very important with these objectives. As a student, I like them to assess themselves so they know that a 4 means that they are an expert. They really have a good grip on this objective, and taking it a step further, they could teach somebody how to make an inference. A 3 would be they're a practitioner, they're practicing it, they might be able to meet the objective, but they maybe would get stuck a little bit. And a 2, we call that an apprentice. They're still learning. They maybe would want to do some more practice with a group. And then a 1, they're a novice. They still need some maybe one-on-one help from the teacher.
I want you to think about our objective. I can make inferences to comprehend text. Where are you at? Are you a 4? Are you a 3? Are you a 2? Or are you 1? I want you to think really hard about this, okay? Making inferences, it's tricky, but that's why you practice it. So hold it up right in front. Are you a 4, 3? Are you a 2?
Self-monitoring is an important tool to use alongside with the I can statements so that students know where they fall on the spectrum of their own learning. One thing that I like to do to wrap up the lesson or to bring closure is to have students turn the I can statement into an I learned statement. It's one thing if students can say, I can make inferences, but it's a whole other level when students can say, I learned that you make inferences by using what you read and what you know to gather more findings about the topic.
I want us to think about our objective. I can make inferences to comprehend text. And now let's put it into an I learned statement. What did you learn about making inferences today? What did you learn about making inferences today? Caitlin?
I learned how to make inferences and to comprehend the text.
And why are making inferences helpful? What did you learn about why making inferences are helpful? Ryan?
They help you understand the topic better.
They help you understand the topic better. Abby, what did you learn about making inferences?
I learned that it helps you understand the story better.
Making inferences helps you understand the story better. Selena, what did you learn?
I learned that you can make inferences by just looking at a picture.
You can make inferences by just looking at a picture. Great.
So at the end of each lesson, I have them transfer the I can to the I learned. So they are taking ownership of the objective. They know what they learned and they can state it. It's a great way to bring closure to your lesson and to really help students see, yeah, I did learn how to make inferences. I met this objective and I can do it. I'm Ellie Bruner, a 5th grade teacher here at Kennedy Elementary, and I hope you enjoyed learning about I can statements.
Wow, it has been such a long way. What have we learned so far? In today's module, we have talked about the 2 types of scales of the CFR, namely global scale and self-assessment grade. I hope that after this module, you're able to tell the differences between each of the levels and assess your own level as well as your students' level. Thank you for your time and see you in the next modules. Goodbye.